In our social culture today, for many of us, our self-worth is determined by the amount of likes, thumbs up, followers, and friends we have. Most are either too ashamed or too proud to discuss the inner battles most of us go through on a daily basis. Grace Redman, author of best-selling Can I Live, absolutely brings it. The title seems like some sort of self-help or motivational book, and for me personally, I never was very interested in that type of read, as I always felt that the author was simply taking someone else's teachings and putting it off in their own words. I Can Live is the best book I have ever read, and let me tell you why. Grace puts herself absolutely out there and says everything we all think, but are too embarrassed to say it. I have never had a connection with a book like I had with this. And the times I nodded in agreement with the words as if I was right next to the author. Can I Live will have you laughing, crying, and have you take a deep inner look at yourself. Best-selling author of Can I Live, Grace Redman. In today's episode, bring it, Grace. Bring it. Just unbelievable. There was so many things that just resonated. Expectations, our planned disappointments. I mean, there were so many things that you are so right on about, and literally just enjoyed so much of it. Before I get into the content, how's the book?
Are we on like this is the
Yeah.
podcast?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we go. That's how we roll here.
I love it. So like this is perfect. And I'm so happy it resonated with you, especially, as can I say this, like as a man, because a lot of my male friends are reading it and I'm like, hey, are you okay with me calling you girl throughout the book?
I noticed that who it was targeted. I did notice that.
But a lot of my guy friends have been picking it up and reading it, and like you, they're like reaching out and like, hey, like this resonated. So I'm so happy that it's been able to resonate for everyone.
100%. First, how's the book doing?
You know what? It's doing great. Like it's doing better than I ever even imagined. I wasn't even expecting this type of success really with the book. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna write a book, because when you go into coaching, they're like, it's a good idea to write a book. And I was inspired to do it, but never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that it was going to be this successful.
It's received already a couple rewards.
Yes, so it went bestseller on Amazon. Actually, we launched Friday morning, November 11th.
Bestseller on Amazon, huh?
Yeah, so by 10 a.m., we were already bestseller in 3 categories. And my publisher reached out to me. She's like, this is unheard of. Like, I've never seen a book go bestseller by 10 o'clock, Pacific Standard Time. And I said, are you serious? Like, I thought she was joking, or not joking, but I thought she was just trying to make me feel good.
Now, what's the criteria for bestseller? How do you get that type of?
It depends on how many downloads the book gets, how many paperbacks get purchased. So it was just, even like, she was surprised on the kind of traction the book was getting so quickly. And honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I was just like, okay, this is great. Like, I'll write a book and keep it moving. But this has been like, it's been an amazing experience. I feel really grateful and humbled, honestly.
It's absolutely amazing. What's the process as far as getting a book published? What exactly goes into that?
So I'm very blessed. I have an incredible publisher. I work with Shanda Trofe of Transcend Publishing. And so my responsibility was to do the writing, like write the book, get the chapters, get it in old order, name the chapters, and then basically send in the draft to Shanda, who is, the publishing company, the publisher, and then they help edit because, I'm really terrible with grammar. So they helped, edit it and then helped me get it up, to the different platforms. So a lot of people self-publish. I chose to, invest and have a publisher help me publish the book.
Sure. Sure. No, I definitely understand. You went to St. Mary's, bachelor's in healthcare
Yep.
administration. You've been reading self-development books since 15, in therapy for 20 some
Yep.
odd years. And what resonated with me is that the book felt almost like a simplification of everything you have been through.
What I heard you say is like everything that I've learned from the time I've been studying self-development, I kind of simplified it and threw it in the book.
Correct.
I did, and there's so many different layers. Like I couldn't put everything in the book. But what I chose is I wanted to simplify it, and I chose the most important concepts that I felt worked the best for me. And I started with the basics. But I've learned, I've been doing this for, 30 years, and I've been in the deep healing process for, almost a decade. And I find even where I'm at now, I still need to go back to the basics. And so when
Yeah.
I was writing this, I was like, gosh, is it going to be really too basic? But it's necessary to always go back to the basics.
On July 19th, the news you received with regard to the cancer, what was amazing to me is we could write a lot, we could read a lot, we could have our own type of theory and think what works and what doesn't and so forth. But once you receive some type of news like that, it's a different level, right? It hits you differently. Yet you went right back to the book and followed your practices and followed your studies and why don't you kind of walk us through that moment and what took you back to the book?
So yes, so that moment, intuitively, I had a feeling, that something was off. I just didn't know what it was. And when you get that intuitive hit, you don't want to give it any momentum. So I had the intuitive hit that something, I was going to have some kind of diagnosis, but I just let it go. So in that moment, I wrote in the book, it took me a couple of days and maybe up to a week to really process the information. And right away I knew, I'm like, okay, I need to practice what I preach. I've been practicing what I preach to this point, but this is even a deeper layer of that. And so I went back to the surrender. I went back to deeper levels of self-care. I went back to setting boundaries. I went back to expressing myself. And so so I think I had 7 weeks between the diagnosis and surgery. And in those 7 weeks, like I deep dove into more healing, and I had my mentors working with me on that. And I had to read the book 3 times, for the publisher while I was going through all of this. And I wanted to throw it across the room. But the night before surgery, because of all of the work I had done, more layers of it, the self-care and just working with my mentors, and I continue to exercise. I continue to meditate. I continue to go deeper into the concepts I practice. Literally the night before the surgery, I don't think I had ever felt as complete as I felt that night in every way possible. And it was such an incredible feeling. I felt a feeling of freedom and peace to feel that complete the night before I was going to go in and have them pull my thyroid out of my body. That regulates, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I in that moment, I was like, if I could do this up to this point, I could do anything.
I love how you put fear and how you break that down as far as false evidence appearing real and how it's irrational. The best way that I thought in reading the book and going through it and so forth was one word, was just journey. It's just such a testament to you and what you've gone through and how open you've been. I find myself today taking a lot of what your book says and applying it. The meditation, slowing down, coming out of yourself a little bit. I love the story about your therapist, Rebecca, and how she called you out and basically said, hey, you've been coming here for 20 years. Enough's enough. You got to choose what you want. And I mean, that to me was that hit.
I mean, I had a similar situation, the other day, and it reminded me of Rebecca. And I said to myself, am I going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? And
Right.
she came into my head like, okay, you've been coming here. She did. She sent me home that day. She
Yeah.
was like, I don't like want to hear it. Like, go home, come back. I need to think about how I'm going to deal with you. And I think in life we come to a crossroad, and there's sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, and those decisions aren't always easy, but what's on the other side is freedom. And that
Yes.
can look any way, you want it to look. But yeah, that was, yeah, I'll never forget that. She was great, like she was like, go home. I couldn't believe she sent me home. Like she didn't even finish the session. She was like, just go home.
One thing that still, I mean, every time I read it, I get a little choked up is the Elizabeth story.
Yes.
On June 5th, 2002, Elizabeth Ann Smart was kidnapped at age 14 in Salt Lake City, Utah. She was held captive for 9 months. She was abducted at knife point, where she was repeatedly raped before she was discovered in Sandy, Utah, only 18 miles from her home. Smart today has become an advocate for missing persons and victims of sexual assault. Today, in her TED Talk, she quotes something her mother said to her. Elizabeth, they have taken 9 months of your life. They will not get 1 more second. Go live your life. Be happy. Grace references this in her book when she talks about forgiveness, and how forgiveness is just another name for freedom. This part of the book for me was the most powerful. And what her mother said to her.
Well, I'm getting choked up about that right now too. Yeah.
And
Man.
what hits hard about that is that individual going through that type of pain and story. And the only thing most individuals you can help is anger, 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 anger. And what she said, it's still, like I said, is you're not going to give them 1 more second.
That's
One
right.
more. That was a good subject or piece of what your journey's been about as well. It's been about the self-healing and concentrating on yourself and not the toxic relationships you've been through.
Yes. And so, I'm not going to front, like it wasn't easy to get to where I am today. Like I spent a lot of time and wasted a lot of time ruminating and
Yeah.
beating myself up. But I think I wouldn't have the compassion and empathy that I do if I hadn't experienced that myself. It took me a long time to get to where I'm at. Now, I'm not going to front either and tell you that, I don't fall into the abyss. Definitely there are times just recently I fell into that abyss where I felt like the victim. I was feeling sorry for myself. However, in that moment, I knew that there was a choice for me to make. And we all have choices, and we get to choose, because now you're talking about forgiveness. We get to choose forgiveness, or we get to choose to stay bitter. Now, I'm not going to say that forgiveness is an easy process. Like if you read my book, it can take, there's some acts against us that are so heinous that it's very hard to think about forgiving.
But a great point you make is that forgiving is not for the other person, it's for you.
That's right. That's right. And so if you even just, one step of forgiveness can be, okay, I'm going to forgive, myself. Or I just, even if you just have the intention of forgiveness, that could be the first step. And I want to emphasize, like, honor what you feel. I think the challenge comes in is when we stay in the anger, the resentment in any situation for too long. That's where we hinder ourselves from experiencing the opportunities and possibilities that are available to us. Because when we're stuck in that lack, we're not allowing the possibilities, we're not allowing ourselves to receive.
Grace, is this a discipline? Discipline in the sense of, is it practice?
Absolutely. Like I'm trying to not use the F words,
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And with all the training I have, with all the experience, with all the healing I've done,
sure.
this is a discipline. It's a commitment. It's consistency. It's a lifestyle. It's a
Yeah.
lifestyle. You never stop. It's like if you're an athlete, are you going to stop practicing and just show up for the Super Bowl? I mean, you're not going to do that. It's a
Yeah.
commitment to yourself every day. Now, are there going to be some days where, like I didn't get to meditate, or I didn't get to exercise, or I
Sure.
didn't, sure. But more often than not, I'm committed and consistent to the concepts in my book. Now more than ever.
Act two, as you described, or the second act, if I
Oh,
may say.
yes.
Yeah. Is act two as well as you described?
Yeah.
That is awesome. I can feel the
So,
energy from you. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, I mean, did I ever think I'd be where I'm at today? Yes. Am I facing some, major challenges? Yes. And I've learned that as long as as long as we're 6 feet above ground, there's going to be something that we're facing that we need to work through, because that's how we grow and expand. And sometimes like, okay, like I'm done. Can I like just be here and have a party for the next, few months? But we're human beings, we're constantly going to evolve. And the way we evolve is through the challenges and experiences that we face.
You've been incredibly successful and professionally and in building what you have, and you have one great line as far as the grind. We wear it like a badge of honor, which is totally true. Everyone wants to say they grind, right?
Yes.
I mean, they'd rather be successful and grind rather than have something come easy and not grind, right? But at what point did you say, hey, this isn't working? It's not going for me.
I think there's a few different moments. Several years ago, I started to lose my passion for the staffing, and I love staffing, and I love,
Yeah.
it's a big part of my life. That's what inspired me to start the coaching. But I lost my passion, and I was doing everything I was told to do. But then I realized, like, this is not working for me anymore. It's not sustainable for us to stay in that hustle and grind. But that's what we're taught, so we could be productive, right?
Right.
Just from that awareness that I had, I was like, okay, this is not working. Like, I can't do this forever. I ended up getting invited to a conference in Arizona. At that conference, there was the spiritual teachers came out in the evening, for a conference. And if you felt guided, so I felt guided to go. In that evening seminar, where they're talking about spirituality and how to create with ease, that's when I was like, okay, there's a better way. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, like this hustle and grind is not working for me anymore. Let me see if I can combine these other tools with the practical tools. And that's what I started to do. It worked. And until it didn't work anymore. Right. So then, I had to do something different. And that, I think I talked about the experiment in my book. So at the beginning of this year, I did an experiment where I just stopped studying. I got out of all the groups. I had started to, like, I was still hustling, but not as, it's like, here's the grind. It was an intensity of 10. And then I just started to dial it back. And then come January of 2022, I just had this intuitive feeling like it had to be dialed back even more. And that's
Yeah.
where the experiment came. Like, okay, like I've done all the studying, I've done all the reading, I've done all the hustle. I'm going to live. I'm going to put, of course I'm going to put effort in the business. I'll obviously
Sure.
book this
Right.
year. but I'm going to just be and enjoy instead of, this was the first year I really didn't have any goals.
How was that?
Amazing. Amazing. I just let myself be. And instead of being attached to achievement,
Yeah.
I was focused on connection, joy, fun, play. And look at, I mean, my business still did well. And I launched the book and it's successful. So there you go.
Energy is real, like you said.
Energy is real. I'm not going to tell you we don't need to take action,
Sure.
but the action we're used to taking is so. Now, are there going to be times in your career where you're going to, put that hustle and grind? Yes, for sure. But do we need to have that hustle and grind on 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year,
Yeah.
And like you said, everything is energy. When I'm in an energy of fear and lack, it's going to take me, I'll succeed, but it's going to take me longer and it's going to feel harder, because, that's the grind. When
Right.
I'm in energy of, I'm doing what I enjoy and I'm going to take the action because I enjoy it. And honestly, we're not going to enjoy everything we do, but if you see it from a different perspective. So if I come from an energy of, I got this, I trust, it comes so much easier. So much easier.
You mentioned one thing in the book, and especially I think it really relates to the environment and society we live in today. As far as judgment, you talk about judgment a little bit and how it separates us from love.
Yes.
And at times you catch yourself with, goes back to a little bit of that discipline. And it seems like you step out and you get curious.
Yes.
What do you exactly mean by that?
So judgment is typically about us. It's about
Correct.
something that we're judging within ourselves. So I find so I want to give you this example. I mean, this is like 10 years ago and not that long ago, because I had the awareness around judgment. So we were at the football game and the one of the ladies came to the football game in like an outfit you'd go out to a nightclub in, right? And she had like all this high, which good for her. Like these
Right.
heels over the knee, like they were this high, like she was walking on the bleachers. And I saw her, and in my mind, I'm like, really? And then I'm like, I got curious, and I could see everyone else around me starting to judge her. They're like looking like, really? Like, what are you doing? So I got curious, and I said, Grace, like, why did that judgment just come up? And I said, well, because in the environment that I grew up in, when a woman showed up, um, in her glory and like looking all fabulous, she'd be called a slut.
Sure.
So that was where, like, okay, so I got curious as, okay, why am I judging her? Because it's about a belief that I hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I mean about getting curious.
I love that because I think in society today, we judge so much as individuals rather than taking the standpoint of, hey, what you say doesn't make you right, wrong, and what I say doesn't make me right. The whole book is just quote after quote that just simply resonates. I'll read it and I'll have flashbacks, of exactly what you're talking about. And that's what I love about it. You really feel that you're talking to the individual. It was just an absolute joy to it. The quotes you have here, I'm just reading a couple. If you let go completely, you will be free. Forgiveness is just another name for freedom. Obviously, there's someone else's quotes, but just simply is just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Is there going to be another book?
So I've been getting that question. Possibly.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah. Give me a few years to be in the second act, and then, I could
Yeah.
write.
I believe it was in the epilogue was how you were dealing with the drinking and Mike,
Yes.
and how your attitude towards that changed was more of, hey, I got my own shit. I need to worry about myself and take care of my own stuff, and he will get to where he needs to be. And then things got, better after that. That must have been hard to do.
Well, yes. So yes, very hard. And the most challenging concept that I've had to accept is that we need to accept people where they are on their journey. There's nothing we can do if the other person's, we have to meet them where they're at.
Sure.
We can't control another person. We can only control ourselves. And so that's been the most challenge, just meeting the person where they are. If they're not ready to take the steps that, they need to, then you have to accept that. Like I said, that's been the biggest challenge for me, is just accepting people where they're at. And, you want them to see their potential, but they have to see their potential.
The stereotype when you look at the title is hey, here's another self-help book, right? Another motivation type book. You've seen it all. What resonates again is how you were speaking to the reader constantly throughout the book.
Thank you.
And how open you were with it. And what you shared is what most others, again, I'm generalizing, what most others seem to have gone through, but aren't willing to say it.
Well, it's scary. I mean, I had one of my uncles, this is like maybe a few years ago. He reached out to me. He's like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because I started to be vulnerable on social media, and put myself out there. And, the reason I do it is, I'm going to get emotional, because we all face these challenges, yet we don't want to talk about them because we wear these masks and we want to be perfect. But there's no one that's perfect, and everything is perfect at the same time, and so it's scary. It was scary to put myself out there, to put my family out there, but the response that we're getting is incredible, because it's allowing other people to recognize, like, I'm not alone. And I have people reaching out and opening up. And I think for us to live our greatest life, like, vulnerability is huge. Now, you don't want to just be, you be discerning, but us sharing what we have, and so, like, it helps us really live in our joy, live in our essence, when we can express ourselves about how we're really feeling. Because when we keep everything here, that's when we create illness. I mean, I'm not blaming myself, but when we keep everything and internalize everything, it creates illness in our body. And then who wants to live with that? And I'm not blaming anyone, or myself, or anyone who experiences those things. But being vulnerable and sharing how we're feeling, I mean, it helps us. It helps all of us. And so I think that's why I wanted to do it, to show, like, it's okay. We can be vulnerable and we can share how we're feeling. No one's perfect.
Did you get angry at times at the some of the judgment on social media, if there was some in the past? I mean, because I think there always is some, which with anybody that opens up on social media with whatever they're going through, I believe there is some sort of judgment, which to me is one of the biggest hypocrisies out there, because 98% of us are going through some sort of the same thing.
Totally. I think the greatest judgment that I had was a judgment against myself. I've been, judging myself, like, did I say the right thing? Did I present it properly? Did I mince my words? So
yeah, that's
to
huge.
be
Yeah.
transparent, I mean, the most of the judgment that I experienced was judgment toward myself. I've been so blessed with incredible community. I've been so blessed with positive feedback. And, in the moments that there were judgment, I knew, like, there was another piece of me that I needed to heal. And then I'd be like, would J-Lo care? No, she doesn't care.
Right. Right.
I use her as an example all the time. I'm like, would she care? No, she wouldn't. Keep it moving, girl. Keep it moving.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, we all have that. We all have judgment against ourselves and the imposter syndrome. It's real.
Is there a favorite part of your book?
There is a favorite part, and my favorite part of the book is the epilogue, because I just let it all out. Like, it was just raw. And I felt like I wouldn't, like, how could I write this book, right? And
Yeah.
talk about all these concepts and then leave that part out. Like I would have felt like a hypocrite. And it was challenging to write.
How long did it take you?
The whole book, well, I did it over a period of a few years. So
Okay.
I would say 3 years. I mean, I started the concept before that, but yeah.
And the epilogue was powerful. Take us through that. How long did that take you? Just itself. Was that something that came when the rest of the book was done?
Oh, yes. I mean, I had
Yeah.
already submitted the book before July, before I got the news. And then I got the news, and then I kind of melted down, and I told my publisher, like, I think I need to write an epilogue. I mean, it's not fair for me to put this book out and not share what's just happened to me, not share the awarenesses I've just had and the struggle, the awareness to the struggle. I think I'd be like, I wouldn't feel right. So I thought about it over a period of several weeks. And then I don't remember how long it took me to write, but I think I just sat down and it was like automatic writing. It just came out.
We are a magnet to the exact things we focus on. It's just so true. We would have a different type of world if people showed up loving, kind, generous, giving, respectful, and attentive. You know, it's just so true how you say that. And like, we'll go into a place in a room, and we want that from somebody else.
Yes.
We want them to lead with it, yet we're not willing to give it on our own end. And
That's right. That's right. And again, like we have to set, we get to set boundaries as well. So I'm not saying, just show up loving and take whatever comes your way. However, yes, like we are a magnet. So
yes,
if your world is chaotic, most likely what's within you is chaotic. We have to give to ourselves first. So when we give to ourselves first and we're full and we love ourselves, it's much easier to give. So we can't give from empty. And so that's why, the first chapter is self-love, because that's where we need to start. Like I can't show up in the room loving and energetic and compassionate and empathetic if I'm beating myself up every day. That doesn't work.
Has your day-to-day as far as work changed?
It's getting there.
Yeah.
We are, in the holidays, but it's been, exciting, and have some, book signing events that are coming up. And so it's fun. I just love connecting with, like, this is amazing. Like I love connecting with people, if anyone knows me, like that's my passion, like just to connect and have these deep conversations. So I'm loving it because that's my jam.
I love it. I love it. Grace, I tell you, I won't take too much more of your time here, but I mean, from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 13 with the foreword and the epilogue, I mean, just powerful stuff. Personally, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart how you opened up. And
it wasn't easy, but I knew I was inspired, I was divinely guided and inspired to open up.
And you did so in a way where you spoke with us. You did so in a way where you loved. You did so in a way where you cared. Everything you included in the book connected, from chapter 1 to the Elizabeth Smart story, powerful, to the epilogue, 100% powerful. And I think it's a book like no other.
Thank you.
Because it does come from the heart. It does speak with us. It does resonate with us. It does take it to a different level. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to be here with you. I'm so grateful that you had the opportunity to read the book, that it resonated. Like I said, I'm so humbled, and I'm definitely grateful to continue to support the community in any way I can.
Any final words of wisdom to people out there going into the holidays that may be struggling day to day, trying to find their own way?
I mean, what I would say, as like you said, we're going into the holidays, and if you're struggling, just I know this sounds so simplistic, but just take a moment, step out of whatever situation you're in, the environment, take a deep breath, and just get quiet with yourself. I know that sounds like, okay, I told my coach many years ago, screw you, when he told me that. But just breathe through your nose, out your mouth, and just get quiet with yourself just for a few minutes. And I promise you that'll make a big difference.
Yeah. And like you say in your book, nothing happens overnight. It is practice, and I'm using that my own way too. It is a discipline, but
it is.
Grace, thank you so much.